Welcome to the Wayne Public Library's virtual author chat. My guest today is Karen DelleCava. Karen has been a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators since 1996. She has also volunteered for the Metro New York chapter as a contributing writer for the professional series events. Karen writes contemporary YA and middle grade short fiction. She received the Peter Plate Award from Highlights magazine for her short story Alpha Best, which appeared in the February 2018 issue. Karen has a BS in Business Administration from Montclair State University and studied writing for children at the New School University. She has also taught writing at William Patterson University. When she's not reading, writing, or playing Scrabble, you can find Karen in a step aerobics or Zumba class. Welcome, Karen. Please tell us a little more about yourself and about your writing career.
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for having me and the Wayne Public Library reaching out to want to spend this time with me. I really appreciate it. So I did go to Zumba class this morning. I did do that. Another thing I love to do, if you see over my shoulder, I have a number of houseplants. So I'm an indoor gardener. I take care of about 30 houseplants. My husband is the outdoor gardener. That's something that I really enjoyed doing. Regarding my writing career, since I always try and say yes. So when my novel first came out in 2011, I participated in 2 young adult author blogs. It was Uncommon YA and Got Teen Fiction. So you're just producing content on a regular basis. And I always like cheering for other people rather than saying me, me, me. I like participating in a group blog. That was a lot of fun. I worked as a freelance writer for an educational company. I was writing scripts for language arts skills videos, I guess that as a supplement to the classroom material. And it was really fun. I did middle grade project and a high school project. So they would give something like sensory details and I would write the lesson, and I got to write like stage directions, like fade to black and move this here and move that there. It was really a lot of fun. I've helped high school seniors with their college essays. I do not write them. I assist, I ask a lot of questions, where to flesh out. I give them a lot of feedback. When I tell them or suggest that they cut stuff, because I know they're writing a lot of fluff just to get through it, they're not real happy about that because they would rather, they're like, no, I have to write more stuff. And I've judged high school creative writing contests. I've done that a couple of times too. My most recent thing I've added to my writer resume, which has been a lot of fun, was helping to write a wedding ceremony. I knew the bride and her brother was going to officiate the wedding. So he gave me like a rough draft of what he was trying to say. So he and I worked together and we're bouncing things back and forth. And I wrote a couple of jokes, which he kept. So at the wedding ceremony, it was really fun hearing my words. And I'm going to my husband, that was me. I wrote that. So for writing, any opportunity that presents itself, I'll tend to say yes.
And you have written for children's magazines. Can you tell us about writing for the children's magazines and what steps are involved in getting a story published? About how long does it take?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've watched a number of your author chats and a lot of them were novelists. And I think writers overlook the magazine market because, you know, they want the book. Like who doesn't? Everybody wants the book. But the magazine market is just very friendly. They need content monthly. So when you're looking at the children's magazines, they need fiction, they need nonfiction, they need poetry, party plans, games, puzzles. There's a need for it. Also, again, I think the writers overlook that because they want the book deal. And the nice thing about the children's magazine market is they're open to new authors. A lot of times the book publishers, they want you to be agented, previously published, and there's more closed doors. But with the magazines, there's greater opportunities. So like these are my magazines. You're going to edit that out from like 04 to 13. And I have a game or a puzzle. I have one party plan in here. Again, it's like an opportunity for a yes. And when you start submitting, like even on a small level, you're getting like name recognition, which is, it's kind of nice. Then when your fiction is coming in, it's like, oh, I've worked with Karen before. So, and it establishes you as a professional as well.
How long does it take to get a story published?
Well, before I submit anything, like certainly to a new magazine, which I'm in the process of doing now, I go to the library and I try and read a couple of years back issues if I can of a magazine, because every magazine has its own tone, its own personality. There's definitely like ratios of fiction to nonfiction to whatever that they're producing at the time. They have guidelines on their websites, but that doesn't give you the reading of the magazine. So I make it my business to do that before I submit anything. Some of them have very specific slants, like, or a theme, like a health and fitness slant. And I've written for a Christian magazine, kind of has to be Christian. The more I read, more I understand the magazine, I feel like I have a better chance of getting a yes from an editor and submitting somewhere where they're actually going to like my work. As far as how long it takes, I could write a first draft of a short story in a few hours, but I have to know what the ending is. And for short fiction for children, I have to establish a problem. My main character has to solve the problem with little or no help from an adult, and then grow and change as a result of the experience. So that all has to come within a finite word count, which is challenging, but I love it. I love rising to that to that challenge. And then I bring everything I write comes to my writers group, and I work with them at least 3 or 4 months. It's not, I don't read every week, but over 3 to 4 months, they help me polish it up, make it the best it could be. Then I submit, then I wait. So I brought a couple of examples of what it's like to wait. When I first heard about Pockets, it was they were having a fiction contest. So I had something in the drawer, and I'm like, I'm just sending it, the word count, whatever, it works. And when they were announcing the winners, they said, we've held back a couple of manuscripts that we're still considering. So I didn't win the contest, but they did hold my manuscript, which eventually they said no, but I'm like, okay, they like my writing. So this is where I invested in a subscription for a year or two. Now, I don't know what's been published in the past, but now I'm getting a sense of the tone and the personality of the magazine, which was a lot of fun. With Highlights, they'll make a purchase and my work goes into their inventory. So there's no guarantee as to when something is published. So I sell all the rights and it belongs to them now, and they could do with it what they will. My first experience at Highlights was, again, writing for a contest. They wanted sports, and I tried to pick something that wasn't common, like what I felt to be common, like softball or soccer or whatever. So I went with skateboarding and surfing. And I got a really great letter, at the contest. It's like, you didn't win, but out of 1,200 submissions, I was a top contender. And that was my first yes. And this was the first short story that I sold. So this was a 1-year turnaround. It was 2001 and it was published in 2002. Too Many Vegetables. This was a fun one. I got to use my husband is an avid gardener, and I used my son Patrick's name. That was a lot of fun. It was accepted in 2004, published in 2007. Finders Keepers. I had to go through, and now this is short, like look at the amount of text on the page. I had to go through 2 rounds of revisions with the editors. Like, they want what they want. It's not that it's easy to write for children or children's magazine market. Like they have a very high standards. And this was accepted in 2003, published in 2011. Yeah, the wait.
What is the average word count, or does each magazine have a different one, or like, is there a standard?
I'm seeing for middle grade in the neighborhood of 750 to 800. When Highlights, the first one in 2002, it was 1,000. They've come down to 800. Now they're at 750 for middle grade. So you really have to tell a story. Hopefully I could have a poignant moment, but I got to get in and get out pretty quick. So it's And that's about what I'm seeing, like for a 2-page spread or 3-page spread, it's in the neighborhood like of 750 to 1,000, I would say. Maybe they'd go as far as 1,200. This one was just fun because I used my son's girlfriend's name, Deandra. And when we got the illustrations back, Deandra has red hair and her favorite color is green. So we thought that this was like the coolest thing when the author came up with this. And this is Alphabet. This is the one that won the Pewter Plate Award. It was inspired by my sister, who I think is here at the meeting, who was a really bad winner. So this is a story about how to be a gracious winner. Jerry, she knows that. She already knows that. Oh, this one was a 3-year turnaround. Another time, that was 2015, published in 2018. This one, Back in Time to School, was my only nonfiction article that I wrote. It was accepted in 2002 and speedily 17 years later was published in 2019. Yeah. So wow. That's the how long.
And is it like you said that that highlights takes the magazines and kind of becomes like in their like a bank of, is it that they're looking for certain topics and then they go through their bank and then those are the ones that get published, or do you write to the topic? That
in the beginning for highlights, things change. Again, I subscribe, so I know what they're doing. I understand how things have changed, like with word count and stuff like that. I'm very in tuned. And they used to be general interest magazines, so they would just kind of accept anything, and the magazine didn't work toward a theme. Now, in the last 2 years, their magazines are themed. So I'm going to show you the last one. They asked for sports, a young girl in sports, and there's the title down there. No fear. Again, I went with skateboarding because it's a little bit different. It's a little bit edgier, and this was because they wanted to do a sports during the Olympics. So they published this during the Olympics. They had the call out for it. And that was one of the new categories. This past, what was that? 21. Yeah, last summer. So
did you, like, when they do the call out, how far in advance? Like how many months?
Well, they put magazines 9 months ahead of time, okay. Like it's 9 months to a year. So if you wanted to write something about an anniversary and it's coming up in 6 months, you're already too late. You would have had to submit that anniversary. Like we had a lunar eclipse or solar eclipse, something really cool recently happened, that would have had to been submitted well in advance of it happening.
Okay. And how many short stories in total have you written? And how many have been published?
I'm going to say I've written about 36. I have 10 here that are published. And I have 3 or 4, I think, that Highlights has now in their inventory that waiting.
Okay. And what are you currently working on?
I'm working on another short story. It's called Sweet Revenge, about middle grade baking competition where the two best friends will ultimately, face off in the end. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been a lot of fun writing that.
Very, like, a good topic, very popular topic.
Yes, absolutely. Who doesn't like a cupcake?
What inspired you to start writing? Like,
my kids. Well, my son was born 31 years ago, and he started reading all these wonderful picture books. And I like to write as a kid, creative writing projects at school. And I'm like, oh, I could do this. This is easy. And I'm like, whoa, so not easy at all. Writing a picture book's got to be the most difficult thing ever. But I grabbed a couple of how-to books. I joined SCBWI at some point. I began attending conferences. I formed my own critique group. It's not the people that I currently meet with now, but like SCBWI had a directory. So I contacted a dozen people within 10-mile radius of my house to see if they wanted to come to me and, to try and do this. That didn't pan out so well, but I knew the importance of having the feedback from a writer's group. And then I did the writer's workshop in New York, which was fantastic. And you just have to keep working at your craft, plain and simple.
Okay. And what you did write the one book. What made you say, okay, like not a book length, more short stories? Where was that transition, or it could happen where like a short story could evolve into something longer? That ever happened?
Right. I guess I was doing both. When I joined a new school university, when I was taking that workshop in writing for children, I think I started with short stories, and then an idea for the novel came, and then I started blasting that out. I blasted that out in a semester, which I had no idea what I was doing, but that's the point of a workshop. Like, you just try. And, I had a very encouraging instructor, and I just kept at it. And the short stories just kind of popped in and out when it was there, when inspiration struck. I'm like, this isn't a novel, but this is a fun short story.
And why the short stories like not transferring into like picture book?
It's just different, because for a picture book, the words tell half the story and the illustrations tell half the story. I think in a short story, my words are telling most of the story and the illustrations like supplement the story. So it's a really challenging balance. I don't think I have it for picture book.
Um, what's the most difficult part of writing for you?
Not knowing the end. So when I start a project, if I don't have a clear idea of where I'm going, it's very frustrating. I have 2 stalled novels for that. Even a short story, I already have to know the punchline in order to get there. But some writers are just like, oh, I'll listen to my characters and see where they take me. My characters, they just didn't care. They didn't want to take me anywhere. I listened, but they weren't going anywhere where I needed to go. So sadly, they're like just stalled. They're there, but I just have to figure out the end. That I found very difficult.
And so do you plot the short stories, or is seat of your pants kind of?
It just kind of all comes out like there's a lot of percolating first before I actually put my pen to the paper. So it all just kind of comes out. I understand what I have to do in that short amount of time. So I don't want to call it a formula, but it's not like plotted where I'm, writing out an outline or anything like that. Like, I just know where I have to go. So I guess seated the pants, I don't know. Just, I can get it out there pretty well.
Lately, I've heard the combined words, like a pantser is like the seat of your pants, but then like the plotster, like they kind of combine both. Um, and what was the most surprising thing that you've learned while crafting your stories?
I was really surprised at how involved I get with my characters, because it's a short amount of words, but like I really feel for them. They are facing real world problems for them at this age, becoming part of a blended family. Bullying, one of my stories was about bullying. What else did I have? Oh, sorry about that. Being competitive with friends or family, and jealousy. Like, these are all things that the kids are dealing with. And I learned, if I'm not affected, then my readers aren't going to be affected. So that really was kind of a nice surprise for me. Like, I've read Surfing Iowa to different classrooms, and it's about a kid moving away from his best friend. And I get choked up when I'm reading it. Like, I really care about my characters, even though it's only on 2 pages.
That's great. Um, I'm gonna ask vocabulary, because I mean, like, is there does the language have to be of a certain, like, what would, like, however whatever grade be able to read the language? Because I know, like, when it comes to like picture books, it can use adult language because it's the pictures, whereas for us, like, easy readers, the words have to be at that level so that they'll be able to understand. So for the magazines, for is there a certain like age level for writing in terms of words?
Well, with highlights, they do have like for younger readers who are emergent readers, and also for the middle grade. And I definitely like the language choice does change, maybe a little bit simpler, but you don't write down, you want to give them some good vocabulary, and as much as the middle grade readers. But I've been doing it so long, I don't know, I don't have like a specific, well, it has to be these kinds of words. I just know what to do. I know what they need. So, but it is slightly different for the younger emerging reader versus the middle grader for vocabulary. Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to switch to publishing and talk a little bit about your book publishing experience. Can you tell us about the publishing journey for a closer look?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I wrote the first draft at New School University with this amazing instructor. It was about 125 pages. And I started, it's a workshop. So you were able to bring the same novel back semester after semester. So I did that a number of times. I started submitting, getting very nice rejection letters. And then because of SCBWI, I attended conferences where I had an opportunity to put like 10 pages in front of either an agent or an editor, which I did at a New Jersey conference. He's like, I like this. He said, is it done? I said, it is. He's like, can I see it? I said, yes, you can. So I signed on with an agent. That was about 6 years in, maybe 2006. And he tried to shop it around for about a year. And we got nice rejections. So he said to me, do you have anything else? Which I didn't, because this is what I'd been doing for the last 7 years. So we ended up parting ways at that point. So it was very discouraging, very discouraging. But at some point, I pulled it back out of the drawer, brought it to my wonderful writers group, and continued to work on it. And then I submitted it again, SCBWI, wonderful organization. They posted something in their newsletter about this new publisher that wanted edgy YA. This was West Side Books. So I'm like, all right, sounds like a good fit. I sent it. They hung on to it for about a year. And then I finally got the yes. And that was in 2010. And the book came out in 11.
Wow. And so they were, I assume they were like a small publisher, but they were exclusively a YA publisher or children's and YA?
Edgy YA is what they were after.
Okay.
Yeah, Cheryl Rainfield wrote Cut, and it was about, a young girl cutting herself, and that was like almost autobiographical, and that did amazingly well there. So yeah, they wanted the edgier stuff.
Okay. And I did read that they went out of business. So is it something that you can get your rights back and reissue the novel like as an indie published, or it not available or not possible?
Well, sadly, my book was out of print before it even saw the light of day, because they announced they were closing their doors before my book was physically there. So, but they were really nice about getting the rights back. Didn't need an attorney or anything like that. They understood, like, it's out of print, you don't want it, so let me have my rights back. And then there was an indie bookstore in Hawthorne, not too far from here, and the bookstore owner, hooked me up with a gentleman who had his own publishing company. He was an author too, Greg Allen, and he put it out as an ebook. He wasn't willing to print it like soft cover or anything like that, but we had it as an ebook for a couple of years. Then he closed his doors. So now whatever books are out there, let's call them collector's items.
Okay. As I was thinking, the topic, there was a lot of talk about alopecia earlier this year, especially. And so I was like, this would be timely now. You would get a little bit more, maybe interest and movement, but
right. I mean, I've not seen it per se, but again, I'm not actively trying. I'm not actively looking at what Amazon sales are or anything like that. So if it finds a home in somebody's hands and they read it and they enjoy it, like, it's a win for me anyway.
And you mentioned an agent, you mentioned an editor. So how, can you talk a little bit more about your experience with both? Do you, I guess you don't really need that for for magazines?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
But I do
Uh,
work with the editors. Like I said, they do have a high standard, and if it's not quite right, they'll throw it back at me. It's only happened a handful of times. I kind of get what they need. So that's nice.
and how many that you're aware of, how many children's magazines are there? The variety to like keep submitting, or um, is there like a number? Honestly, as you can probably tell, I don't know a lot about
Yeah,
children,
no,
about magazine writing, and I'm very interested. Um,
there's dozens of them out there, and it's out of reach now, but I do have a book on like the children's magazine market, and I have all my sticky notes for where I might be able to send. Dozens and dozens. There's specific like Boy Scout ones, there's specific Christian ones, all the Nat Geo kind of ones, and that are more photo oriented. We have the Cricket Media Group that has like 5 children's magazines: Baby Bug, Ladybug, Spider, Cricket, and Cicada. Those are all their fiction magazines. And then they have a branch of nonfiction magazines that there's like 5 of them. It's like World Cultures, American History. I don't remember the names of all those magazines because I don't write a lot of nonfiction, but there's plenty out there. And again, for opportunities with open doors for writers.
okay. That is a lot. That's a lot. I mean, some I'm familiar with from the library, but wow. So you mentioned also critique group and writers group. So can you tell us about the benefits of having critique partners and joining writers group? Can you just share some of your experience? Um, kind of pitch. I mean, it's always good, but I like to hear authors give
I mean,
their take on it.
on a scale of 1 to 10 for having a writers group, it's a 25. It's a must. You can't do this alone. And I have this amazing writers group. I don't want to cry, but I've been with them for 17 years. We meet every Wednesday and every Wednesday night. And one of the guys in our group said, he's like, there's nobody I want to see once a week. But we've been meeting once a week for 17 years. And, as of 2020, we've been Zooming, which has been wonderful because we have a couple of out-of-state people and one out of the country writer. So we could all be together once a week, which has been fantastic. I trust them implicitly. They're open, they're honest, they're brilliant. Everyone brings something a little bit different to the table. And I couldn't submit anything without running my work through them at least, a half a dozen times. They're just brilliant. And you'd be so lucky to find a group like I have. That's what you really need, is people that you could trust. And I do.
And these are your critique partners. These are your
Yes.
Okay. And does everybody write the same within the same genre, the same type of work? Like, are short stories, children's? Is it all usually all the same, or are you bringing in all different types of subgenres within children's literature?
Well, we all met at New School University, and when our
Okay.
instructor retired, we continued on by ourselves. So this was a workshop for writing for children.
Okay.
So among us, it's everything from pre-K to YA. So we have picture book writers, we have novelists, we have nonfiction picture book writers, middle grade, a lot of really strong middle grade writers. But it is all for children. We have one writer now, like, again, we've been together for 17 years. Like, would you mind if I brought in something that wasn't for children? And maybe if it was like we're 2 years in, we'd be like, no, we only write for children. But now we're listening to something that's it's for adults, nonfiction for adults. So we're listening to that now, but mostly we are for the kids.
Okay. Okay. And the writers group, the children's book writers and illustrators group, the benefits of joining that, what have they been?
I mean, I guess the best part is that you become a part of a community right away. There are so many opportunities for the conferences that put you in front of an editor that will read your work as an attendee of the conference, where maybe they wouldn't be open to reading submissions. So that's like a nice way to get closer to editors. Writing is just such a private endeavor. It's like you're just so alone, but you need your community to do that. And I think SCBWI really provides that. As much as you want to be involved and engaged, you can, even with volunteerism, but there's programs for craft. And it's just like a networking process, and you really learn more and more. The more you participate, the more you're going to get out of it. They're fantastic.
Okay. And what advice would you give a new writer that's just starting out?
If you want to write for magazines or anything, I say read what you think you want to write. I went to a conference early on, and the editor said, if you want to write a book, you better read 1,000. So you have to know what your genre is and where you'll be able to find your voice. Second piece of advice, I would say, just write. Allow yourself to write. Allow yourself to make the mistakes. The revisions come later, but just allow yourself to get the words onto paper. Like, put your rear end in the chair and write. And finally, I would say, write what you care about. Especially if you're getting involved with like longer works, like you really have to be passionate about it. You're going to spend a lot of time. Between inspiration to publication takes a really long time. So you have to be passionate about it. You have to love what you're doing, love your characters, because you'll see if you don't, how can you expect your readers to love your characters as much as you? So I think those three things are really important.
Okay. This is where I'm going to say, if anybody has any questions for Karen, to please type it into the chat. And I have what I call my fun question for you. What do you read for fun? And do you have a favorite author?
Oh, I'm between novels right now. So for fun, I've read this 4-book series. It's called the Stage Dive series by Kylie Scott. And I've read this group of 4 books multiple times. So it's Stage Dive is this rock band, this epic rock band, 4 guys, and it's 4 20-something girls who kind of enter their lives. And it's just like a lot of drama and steamy romance and, the whole, fame and fortune thing. I just finished the 4th book over the weekend. So I'm looking for another novel.
She has written other things. she
has
other series.
It's funny because do I have a favorite author? I really try to support new authors and find that voice. I mean, like, I feel the established authors, you have all the accolades. Like, I want to find someone like me. It's like, who knows me? I want to find that person that they're so excited that they got their first book out. So that's, I don't have it with me. Oh, it's over there. I don't have it on the table with me, but we have 2 women in our writers group, Sheila Flynn DeCosse, and she had a book that just came out, Rose Alone, set in the 1700s about Acadia, where this teenage girl was taken from her home and brought to, I think it was the Hamptons, like stolen and forced into slavery here. And this was her story of, how she just wanted to get home. So we're applauding that. Again, new writer. So we're so thrilled. And then we have another writer, Arlene Mark. Her book, well, I don't have Sheila's to hold up, so I don't have Arlene's to hold up either. Her book is coming out in August. It's called A Year Without a Summer. And it deals with, there's like an element of natural disasters, global warming, your servicemen, coming home from after war, like stuff, both novels, even though one's historic, like, are really pertinent to topics about today. So we're just celebrating them right now. And I review all those authors, like any new author, I try and review on Goodreads and Amazon too, to support them.
And are those both like young adult books or adult books?
No, those are both YA. Yeah, the main characters are teenagers, or like 8th grade, so they'll call that YA.
Okay. So Kylie Scott, as you mentioned. So no favorite author. Just you really like to promote and read new authors. That's wonderful.
I
That's always
do.
it's always good. It's kind of what the whole thought behind the author chats has been, is like, yeah, they all get the accolades, so let's put somebody else on the map. Let's give somebody an ability to like talk about themselves and tell us a little bit more about their writing and their experience. So,
Exactly.
um, there are no questions in the chat. So, Karen, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today
Thank you
and
for
for telling us
having
a little
me.
bit more about writing for magazine, writing for children. I definitely learned a lot because, again, as you saw, not necessarily what I've encountered before. So this has been wonderful, and I hope educational for anyone who's watching now or will watch in the future. Will get a takeaway. What they might want to do. So
Thank you, Janet. It's been a pleasure, really a pleasure. Thank you.